All right, guys, how's it going? Welcome to OverVolted. I am your host, Kirk. We have Matthew joining us,
Hey.
and we have Aurelian.
Morro,
Moro.
which would be Finnish for hello.
Well, today we're going to talk about the big news. Intel just had its quarterly earnings report, and let's put it this way, it was not good. Not good at all. Matthew, you wrote an article about it, actually. You want to go ahead and lead us off here?
So, we were actually tipped off about this 2 days before the earnings report, and we did not have enough time to leak this. Now, somebody else was also tipped off about this. Charlie from Semi-Accurate had this info for like 2 to 3 weeks, and he did not get to leak it.
Well, he was still working on his article.
Yeah, he was still working on it. He's got dedication, but I feel so bad for him.
Yeah.
Did not get to leak it. I would have been really mad if Jim and I had this info for that long and we didn't leak it.
Well, we knew that based on history with the 10 nanometer stuff, Intel tried to cover that up all the way along, right?
It was pretty obvious in because of 14 nanometer and because in 2015 nothing happened.
Yeah.
With 7 nanometer, you could give Intel a little leeway that it wouldn't be delayed because it was already delayed. You could say that's because 10 nanometer was delayed.
Yeah, they wanted to get some money out of 10 nanometer with it being delayed. And so everyone would have been fine a little bit with 7 nanometer being a little delayed, obviously.
Oh, yeah, and by the way, this is about 7 nanometer being delayed by 6 months
already.
And that's on a premature launch because their yields are 12 months behind.
Yeah.
So when it launches in well, I guess it's gonna launch in the middle of 2022 as like a paper launch. It'll be a paper launch because they won't have.
The thing is, we don't know exactly, right?
We have no idea, and it'll probably get worse. I bet there's gonna be another delay. I bet. Anyways, they announced that in their earnings report. And
which took everyone by surprise.
Yeah, it really surprised. It surprised me, and it surprised me that they said so. Me and Jim were pretty confident that we could sit on this info for a little while we like validated it and analyzed it. We had no idea that was probably leaked to us because it was in the earnings.
Yeah, they made a slide about it. So in the bottom of the slide.
So I'm sure other people were told as well, if we were told. And the takeaways from that earning report was the 6 months delay for the launch, the 12-month delay in yields. They're going to focus actually more on 10 nanometer since 7 nanometer is in such a dire state. They have to focus on 10 nanometer a little bit more now. And then there's also going to be the G project with the GPUs. That's off the rails right now because Ponte Vecchio was supposed to be fabbed at Intel. And now they're looking into fabbing, outsourcing, quote unquote, some parts at other fabs.
Yeah, but they did stress that the CPUs would not be at other fabs.
Yeah, that's also our info. I don't know if they talked about whether or not the CPUs would be. They might have said that.
I thought in the press release that, or at least it was a Twitter or something, they confirmed that they would not have CPUs at TSMC.
Well, that's consistent with what we've been told as well.
Yeah.
So maybe they go for GloFo.
Oh yeah, let's go with GloFo. Yeah.
Yeah.
22 nanometer, that would be great.
Yeah. Well, they apparently GlobalFoundries got an investment from Samsung. That's a Cortex leak. Go read about it. Anyways, so what else? Oh yeah, Q3 guidance was really bad. It's like not the gross margin, but the net margin, I think, or operating margin. I can't remember what the term is. That's down a few percentage points, which is pretty severe for Intel. Revenue is down. It's like by like $1 billion, I believe. So overall, yeah, just one cool $1 billion.
Most of what AMD makes in a year. Come on.
Oh yeah, hang on. I got you. Interrupt me in the middle of the GPU stuff.
Go for it.
So Ponte Vecchio. Some parts will be outsourced to either TSMC or Samsung or even GlobalFoundries. Now, that could just be they're talking about the high bandwidth memory, which was always going to be like a Micron or a Hynix or a Samsung fabbed part. But they could be talking about the GPU itself. And Our leak in January about DG2 being TSMC, DG2 should be a similar chip to Ponte Vecchio. It should be that GHP kind of architecture. So that means that the GPU, they could have already have been making a version of Ponte Vecchio on TSMC's node. And
you got to think the insiders, people like Raja, would know how terrible 7 nanometer was being.
Oh, yeah.
And that it wouldn't make the launch targets that he wanted for DG2 or DG1. So
I think with Raja, because he's an outsider of Intel, he hasn't worked at Intel before, and like the whole G team is like, they're pretty new. I think he had a lot of leeway to get the other guys on board with that. They could do TSMC or some other fab.
Especially since he's worked with TSMC doing their fabbing.
He could make, even if 7 nanometer Intel node wasn't that bad, he could still make the case that it would be better if they just went to TSMC. At least for like a first generation product.
Yeah.
So DG, and also according to our info, DG3 is off the roadmaps, probably canceled. And that was supposed to be like all of Raj's work, basically. Because first you have like the GLP, which was designed under Ari Rauch, who Raja took over. And then you have the GHPC, which is like also Ari Rauch's, but also Raja added a bunch of stuff to that. And then the next thing after that was going to be like Raja's thing in like 2023. So I think
because DG2 was entirely his architecture, wasn't it?
No, I'm pretty sure. It's 3. 3 is supposed to be his.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, we're pretty confident that Raja's probably going to get shown the door at some point or leave. And
#thanks Murthy.
Well, I hope he doesn't watch this podcast.
Yeah. Raja, we like you. It's just that you've had some pretty bad luck recently.
Well, a little bit of that infighting is also not helping.
Yeah.
But if he gets canned for that, that's actually kind of a compliment, because you're considered a strong enough contender that you get sacked because of that. So,
but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Just let me finish the point on the GPU thing.
Go for it.
He's gonna leave this year, probably fired or resign or something.
Personal reasons.
The GPUs, they're probably gonna get canceled. Yeah, they're probably going to get canceled. I don't know if Ponte Vecchio will ever release. I mean, maybe Ponte Vecchio will come out, and then after, it'll be absolutely nothing. Because they've totally bungled this whole thing because of the infighting. Specifically, according... It's not just our sources, but I believe like a lot of other people are saying this, is that one of the executives, Murthy Rendon-Intala, it's a very long last name.
Hence Murthy.
It's a TH, not a PH in the Murphy.
Yeah,
anyways.
TH.
And he's basically gunning for CEO. Because the narrative is that he got snubbed by Bob Swan. And he wanted to be CEO, and he obviously didn't get that position. So now he's like on a mission to make sure that he gets CEO.
Yeah, well, if you want to hear more about this, please watch Jim's latest video. I think it's pretty self-explanatory and a well-made video.
His video's really good. It talks about this, and like Jim's more knowledgeable with this because he's got most of the sources. But the main thing is that I forgot. Damn it.
Well, probably I guess. Weren't you going for the fact that I think infighting usually doesn't help?
Yeah, I was gonna say something like that. I can't remember, but it's like this Intel is just dying right now. Because
when is this torrent of bad news going to end?
It's gonna. I think it's just gonna keep going. I'm so certain there's gonna be another 7 nanometer delay. There's no way it's. Because one of the things that Jim said... Oh, now I remember what I was going to say. 2 things. Jim said... was told that 7 nanometer is looking worse than 10 nanometer.
At the very end.
And, yeah. Jim loves the dramatic tension. But,
he's good at it.
And Jim Keller, we remember that Jim Keller left recently from Intel, and reportedly he had a lot of conflict with Murthy over outsourcing to TSMC. I think that's probably about the CPUs, because we know that the GPUs are going somewhere else. So Murthy probably didn't care about the GPUs, but I bet Keller was asking about the CPUs.
Yeah, and I think Murthy was over the whole 7nm bit anyway.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He was sort of like, I don't know exactly what his position was there, but he was like giving communication on it at least. He was saying everything's fine, 7nm is looking good, this, that, and the other. I mean, It's almost basically the same thing that they told us about 10nm, but I believed it because I just couldn't. I mean, it just didn't make sense to me that they could screw it up even harder.
But there are some murmurings that Bob Swan perhaps mentioned that 7nm problem as more of a kind of trying to get Murthy to kind of not be in a good position. So maybe a little bit of that fighting back against what Murthy's been doing internally. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So he could be starting the fight back to help evict Murthy. Maybe.
If Bob Swan wins this, then he's a hero, and he might save Intel.
Well, that's been his goal all along, is to try to save Intel.
Yeah, now I believe him that he's actually trying to do a good job.
Yeah, and the fact that he made this whole 7nm thing public rather than trying to hide it, kind of gives some kudos. But if 7nm is bad as Adored's being told, then I don't know. I wouldn't take this recent hit in Intel's stock as a buying opportunity. I would kind of leave it.
Yeah.
Not financial advice. I'll disclaimer that right now. Do not take any financial advice from us. Just consider.
I mean, from my perspective, it's only going to get worse. Yes. Because they have absolutely no recourse in the next 3 years. They'll still be 10nm won't be good enough, even if the node has been fixed, which I have been told that it has been fixed. But the yields can't be that good. It's still 10nm. You also have to consider 14nm. That's going to be, let's say like maybe it's half and half, 14nm, 10nm. That's still too much 14nm. It's too far behind. And then you also have to consider, like, they can't outsource right now. They have to move stuff for that. Even if they're lying about the outsourcing thing, it takes a long time to do that. So it's until 2023 when, like, they're going to have some good news.
Yeah, so 2022 for desktop, the next quarter, early 2023 for their server CPUs is kind of the track that they're on right now, assuming no more delays.
There will be a delay, absolutely.
We know 100%. There's going to end up being another delay, and Intel stock is going to take another hit most likely. I mean, you saw what happened just as soon as they had that quarterly announcement. The following morning, it was just just a drop of 16%, it looks like. Just total sacking of their stock.
Yeah. That was probably the worst day in the history of Intel. I'm going to call it right now. Like, I know about all, like, the stuff in the mid-2000s, but this has to be the worst.
I mean,
I think this has to be.
The human malware did drop their stock value down, even further down into the 45 range, but that's transitory thing.
The human malware, that's been making a lot of these companies a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because people are buying a lot of tech. And then when you see Intel's poor Q3 guidance, you're like, that ain't right.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's real bad.
This isn't something that's just transitory like that. This is something that's a more permanent systemic issue with the company. And so their drop in stock value is probably more their actual now value.
Yeah.
The sad thing I see is the fact that if AMD is left alone, so if Intel has, looks like it doesn't have anything for the 2.5 years or more, maybe more, will the situation for us and consumers go a bit worse because, there's no competition. So
AMD can raise their prices now.
Prices and all that.
Kirk.
Why would AMD?
Kirk, you need to, in post, you need to show the meme from Megamind where it's like AMD has saved us. You know the one I'm talking about?
No.
Oh my! I'll have to show you, and I'll have to show you afterwards. But everyone watching right now should be looking at that. Right, Kirk?
Sure.
I will
have to find that.
I will send it to you.
Oh, I wouldn't say freed, more like under new management. There's that one.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh,
That's what I'm talking about. That's from Megamind. Not the AMD part, but like the stills are. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think AMD's going to be the bad guy, Aurelian.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about that.
That's absolutely. It's happening next generation. Zen 3, there's going to be a price bump. I guarantee you.
Yeah. And I mean, we've already seen a little bit of their price bumping when they came out with Zen 1, Zen 2. They got the now XT Zen 3s. Threadripper, yeah, that was a good example too. I mean, they did price that significantly less than their Epic counterparts. So there is that.
I think a good question is for the outsourcing thing for Intel. Where are they going to go?
Right.
I think I have a very strong opinion about where they're going to go. I think they're going to go to Samsung because that makes the most sense to me.
Well, Samsung's been having a little bit of trouble too, haven't they?
Yeah, but think about this. Intel does not want to go to TSMC because A, they're in high demand, and B, TSMC hates them. And Intel also hates TSMC.
Yeah.
But they can see Samsung, which is in a vulnerable position. Intel has fab tech. Samsung has fab tech. They're both behind. That's an opportunity for a partnership.
But I might be blissfully unaware. Why do Intel and TSMC hate each other? I mean, what happened?
Because they're the two biggest fabs in the world.
Yeah.
And Intel used to be top dog, not anymore.
And they boasted about it too.
Yeah.
And do you think that would be enough? I mean, if Intel comes with a sweet proposal to TSMC might still say no, not interested.
I don't think that. I think they'll say no because also you have to consider who TSMC's customers are, and most chiefly Nvidia and AMD, who are both Nvidia competitors. I'm sorry, Intel competitors. Yeah, Intel competitors. They both hate Intel.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So
there's not enough volume left in TSMC's,
and that's
fabs.
Also an issue.
They're already being tapped out and getting delays as they start coming out with even their 5 nanometer stuff. They're already booked out for.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's a production delay, but the actual TSMC 5 nanometers actually had a schedule.
Well, yes, I'm just saying they're booked out because of demand.
Yeah, there's some.
And so there is
trailing time. What's the word? I can't remember what the lingo is. But when you put in the orders, there's a delay.
Yeah, there's a delay due to still having to kick out chips for everyone else that got in line before you. So they're in high demand. They're doing really well. Yeah, there's just no stopping them, it looks like. I mean, it's quite surprising, amazing, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, that's exactly why I think Samsung and Intel are going to team up.
Yeah, and with Intel's announcement, obviously TSMC's stock went up as well.
Yeah.
And so it got a nice little spike and a little bit of pullback, but I think they're probably going to settle at a little bit of a new high now. But you look at AMD definitely benefited from that quarterly report. They had already been going on the up and up to the 60 range and just kind of getting close to kissing that Intel number. And then Intel just fell on their sword and AMD just jumped almost $10.
I think the technical term for that is that Intel ate shit.
Well, they have.
Yeah, they absolutely did. That was just a magical day seeing AMD cross the stock price of Intel. This was either the first time in history or the second time.
Yeah.
I can't remember if AMD ever got... You remember in the mid-2000s they hit their peak. When they got... I think that... Was that when they hit the gigahertz barrier?
But the stock price itself is kind of a misnomer. The price is the price. It's not a big thing. It's
Intel and AMD are two totally different companies, but it's seeing a company as small as AMD go higher than Intel, even though their two stock prices have been totally different for a very long time. That was a magical moment.
I think their total valuation, their market cap is $81 billion, and Intel is still at $214 billion. So they got quite a ways to go before their valuation is similar, but obviously without as many physical assets, they're going to have a hard time.
That disparity is not as much as I thought it was.
No,
revenue is a big disparity.
It used to be closer to maybe a tenth of Intel's, but they have had such a market growth with their stock price. I mean, they used to be at 30 not too long ago, and they're double that now, so 40 billion versus...
They were like $1.50 to $2 5 years ago. Now they're like over 30 times that.
Yeah, so anyone that bought stock based on Jim's forecasting about the chiplets, and he's like, I see 30 as a target kind of thing. Count yourselves lucky. A lot of us are envious. A lot of us in the news probably would have bought the stock if it hadn't been some conflict of interest kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that, and we're just poor writers anyway, so.
Yeah. But there's also, like, Intel stock price before the drop, it had only gone up by 2 times since 2015 compared to AMD's like
2x.
over 30. Yeah. And now it's not even double. It's like maybe like 1.5, 1.75.
Mm-hmm.
So I think do we have anything else to say about Intel?
It's going to be a wild ride with these stocks and all of the trickle down that this is going to cause, because this is going to affect a lot of Intel's partners in the industry. You got HP, Dell. They haven't quite been affected yet. They've only moved, 2-3%. I noticed that Micron dropped about 5% that same day. And there's been some other tech companies that have also had some broad selling. So I don't know. Maybe this was kind of a perfect storm that just kind of affected the whole industry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tech has been kind of considered a safe haven during the human malware stuff, because anything that enables work from home or remote is a big thing, right? You got schools that are going to be doing some schooling at home kind of stuff, and they might be providing technology to do so. And there's going to be a lot of shakeup because of this. We interrupt this podcast to bring you the latest news on Intel. They have announced they're making changes to technology organization. They're having Dr. Ann Kelleher head the Intel manufacturing department. Dr. Mike Mayberry is actually going to be transitioning to his planned retirement at the end of the year, and will be consulting and assisting until that point in time. The manufacturing and operations are going to be led by Kevin S. Farhani. Sorry if I butchered that. And then design and manufacturing led in the interim by Josh Walden, while they look for a permanent world-class leader to head up that department. Architecture, software, and graphics will continue to be led by Raja Kadori. Then we have Dr. Randhir Thakur. He's going to be continuing to run as Chief Supply Chain Officer. The part that made this necessary for this podcast is that Murthy is going to be leaving on August 3rd, 2020. So it does look like Bob Swan definitely was aware of what was going on. But of course, he was polite in his farewell. I look forward to working directly with these talented and experienced technology leaders, each of whom is committed to driving Intel forward during this period of critical execution, said Swan. I also want to thank Murthy for his leadership in helping Intel transform our technology platform. We have the most diverse portfolio of leadership products in our history, and as a result, our 6 pillars of innovation and disaggregation strategy, much more flexibility in how we build, package, and deliver those products to our customers. So there you have it. Apparently, Murthy is not going to be as big of a problem as we just talked about, but it was still fun, wasn't it? And we return you back to your regular program.
So, MI100?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to your article for that.
Yeah, so Jim didn't feel like making a video about this. I had to cajole him into letting me write an article. This is MI100. We got the slides. We're not showing them because we can't, but we have the specs. Let's just run them down really quickly. 120 compute units. That was basically what everyone expected. 32 gigabytes HBM2. What pretty much everyone expected. I don't know if there's any other like memory configuration. There might be a 64 gig version, but we don't know. And this is the part where it gets controversial. The FP64 is 9.5 teraflops. That was pretty normal, I think. Everybody thought. FP32 is 42. Sorry, FP32 is 42 teraflops. That's what a lot of people thought was crazy. And then FP16 is 150. It's got like a 300 watt. We don't know if this is TDP, TGP, TBP. We don't know. It just says 300 watts for power. So I assume this is the whole GPU. And then it can link up to 8 GPUs with 6 links, or 4 GPUs with 3. And I believe AMD talked about that in their
the Infinity architecture stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. They have like a graph with like all those GPUs and stuff.
Yep.
Like in the ring. It's by the way, it's only 6 links because they're like, if one GPU is on one side of the ring and one GPU is on the direct other side, they don't have a link. So it doesn't work like that. So that's why it's one link than you might expect. Not all GPUs are linked to each other. PCIe 4.0 obviously. We're saying H2 2020. We saw both Q3 and Q4. I think AMD might announce it in Q3, and I think like the OEM systems are coming in Q4. I think that's probably what we're gonna see.
Yeah, they definitely like their late Q3 launch stuff.
And then quick rundown of features. The Infinity Fabric, it works with both Rome and Milan. That's not exclusive to Milan. The GPU to GPU Infinity Fabric does work with Xeon, but there's kind of a catch with the PCIe lanes and stuff. Because it's A 3.0 and B probably not as many PCIe lanes. And then there's no graphics pipeline at all. There's no graphics pipeline. So this is probably data center or scientific only.
Yeah, so no rasterization pipeline.
No, you're not going to see. Yeah, you're not going to see like a pro variant of this, I don't think, because then you're still going to need another GPU for like display.
Which most servers will have anyway, so it's...
Yeah. And then you get... One of the features AMD was touting was really good performance scaling with multiple GPUs. And you can see... We have a snippet of a graph that we were sent where you can see like what they claim the scaling is. So 32 GPUs, 31 times performance. Almost perfect. And then we have the 4 to 8 GPUs in a single cluster.
Well, and even with Crossfire and stuff, we've seen AMD do really well with their GPU scaling.
No, Crossfire is bad. Crossfire is really bad.
Yeah, but they got better scaling than SLI. And I'm talking more just the straight like compute side of things.
Oh, too. Compute, yeah, sure. And compute and gaming, no.
Well, gaming was even painful. With gaming, they were still slightly ahead of SLI as far as the performance gain from adding that second CPU. Or GPU.
Yeah, I never really pay attention to SLI. I had a Crossfire rig before, but I never paid attention to SLI, so I don't know how. I'm not familiar with SLI. Is what I'm saying.
I mean, by the time you added the third GPU, SLI only gained like 25%.
So, okay, back to features. I guess it isn't really a feature, but it's gonna be. AMD thinks it will be competitive against the A100, NVIDIA's new Ampere-based data center GPU in single precision, but we don't think it's gonna do any it's gonna make much of a fight in any other workload like FP16 or FP64. It's targeted at HPC, AI, and machine learning, and AMD's marketing this towards oil, gas, and academia. So the controversy, from what I can tell, is what our FP32 figures were. And we actually double checked this, Jim and I, and we were noticing why that people were thinking it was way too high. And we looked at the slides and we're like, oh yeah, that's why that is. We're not going to say why it's so high. We're going to leave that to you, the viewer, to speculate on, because we think it will be interesting. And it's not because we don't know. We do know. We promise.
We just can't tell you without revealing our source too much.
No, I think we could say... but Jim did think it would be funnier if we didn't say.
Funnier?
Or not funnier, but more fun.
Oh.
Not
to tease like it a little bit and then leak it later. Yeah.
I mean, this is probably coming out by September. So we're going to be right real quick. I'm not even going to say that we're going to be wrong because we're not.
Confidence. Love it.
Yeah, well, you saw the slides.
I saw the slides.
They look legit.
I would say they look a lot more legit than some of the ones we've seen.
Yeah.
We haven't yet found a reason to distrust these slides. They look very genuine.
Yeah. If you, a lot of people were like, because you have like the ratios for like clocks to flops to compute units, and they were, if you just put like the 42 teraflops into that ratio, you would get back 2.7 gigahertz. It's not running at 2.7, by the way. It's obviously not. But that should tell you something, that there's something going on there with the FP32 performance.
Yeah, especially compared to the 64.
Maybe a little bit of marketing. Maybe a little bit of that.
Maybe.
Who knows? But yeah, this was interesting. Not super revolutionary, but it's nice to see that AMD is doing something in the data center arena that's like beating NVIDIA.
Can we talk about the 120 compute units?
Yeah, sure. What about it?
I think a lot of people were surprised to see 120. I mean,
really, that's been rumored for a while. That's been rumored for a long time.
Everyone looks at it in context of the gaming side of things, and so
I guess so.
Everyone was used to the whole 64 CU cap that we used to have, and now that that's no longer a thing, we have the 80 CUs, and everyone's like, "Whoa, 80! A whole lot." And they're like, "That must be the top end card and everything." And no, we have 120 in this card.
Yeah,
that's a huge jump from 80.
And by the way, no, it's not multiple chips. It's just one. It's one really, really big die. We don't know exactly how large it is. It's at least 750 millimeters squared, though. I'm pretty sure it's at least 750.
But since they took out the whole rasterization engine, then they had some room to put in the extra compute units.
Though I don't know if they actually would have hit the reticule limit if they didn't take out the graphics pipeline.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they would have either. We don't know the actual die size, right?
Yeah.
We just have to assume it's big because of the 120 and it's a pro part.
Well, it could be 800. I think it could be.
We'll find out, I hope.
Yeah. I mean, it's at least double of MI50.
It's got 300 watt typical power consumption as well. So either they downclock the crap out of it just to keep it in the power limits, or it's kind of a smaller chip.
If you do the math with FP16, FP64, it comes out to like about 1.2 gigahertz, which is it's a tiny bit lower than MI50. It's like 100 megahertz.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's still 1.5, 300 watt. They wouldn't have been able to do like a 300 square millimeter without consuming more power than that, right?
Yeah.
So
what's really interesting is that the power hasn't changed that much, but everything else is so much higher compared to MI50. Like MI50...
So definitely some good efficiencies going on.
Yeah.
And it obviously isn't all due to maturing 7 nanometer.
This would have to be almost entirely architectural. It could be maybe even better than RDNA 2's reported efficiency gain.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe. I mean, it depends on what they mean by 300 watts. There was like no like
typical
there.
Yeah, we're not running Furmark on this, so.
So I mean, it looks good, I guess. Better than what they had before.
Well, we shall see shortly.
Yes, very shortly. And Aurelian, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm a bit out of the loop when it comes to this server compute card, so just listening.
Yeah.
All right. So gaming chair?
Yeah. Next topic is not necessarily a gaming chair, but I mean, I'm not sure if everyone is like me that kind of eyeballs those gaming chairs and just kind of likes the gaming chair style. I mean, I wish I had a gaming chair, but in my car where it's useful, right? Because that's the whole thing is you got the wings on the sides that kind of cup your body. That is meant to help with G-forces. You got a 5-point harness. You need to stay in one spot and not get thrown out to the side when you take a turn at 1.5 Gs. That's just how it is. But they put this style in office chair format for sitting at a computer with no G-forces whatsoever. But they keep these little wings and things as the styling. It's just like putting LEDs on your computer. It's just styling. There's not much comfort when it comes to what those things are doing. And as a matter of fact, I haven't sat in a gaming chair yet where the wings at the shoulders, I'm assuming they're supposed to be slightly above the shoulders, they land at my shoulders because I'm 6'1". And so it always rolls my shoulders forward and gives me a little bit of pain in my upper back, lower neck area. And they're just uncomfortable for that reason if you're not sitting exactly in a certain way. And some of that has to do with a little bit of slouching, so my shoulders land in the right spot. pain in the butt. And obviously slouching causes
Pain in the back.
Yeah. Slouching causes pain in the back, which is where the lumbar pillows come in. And I put a little assortment of 3 gaming chairs, just random ones, no particular reason, where they show lumbar pillows of mostly the same style. And I mean, I sat in one of these 3 gaming chairs just this other day here, 3 days ago? And they had that little pillow, and it felt like a piece of foam wrapped in a hard plastic shell that is these faux leather knitted cushions. Sure, it added a little bit of support. You sat against it, it squished, and it was better than nothing. Like if you took the pillow out, like I've seen a lot of people do, it's better than the nothing, right? But I sit at a chair at work and at home at least 16, 18 hours a day, with some getting up and moving, of course. I always recommend doing that. But I would get back pain with at least my home chair, because my home chair is old and its cushion is just kind of dead now, right? No lumbar or any of that anymore. It's just an old chair. I need to replace it. Obviously, gaming chairs were something I looked at, but I'm like, well, I went to Costco one day and saw this lumbar support. It's an automotive lumbar support from Samsonite, but I saw it. It was on sale for $10. I bought it. It's like, what can it hurt, right? I actually started to like it a lot, right? And it's just the right size for me. But I actually won purple and gave it a good solid try, right? I used it for a couple weeks. I said a week in the article. That's because I've been using it on and off, switching between it and the Samsonite as well, just to kind of get a feel for which one did better for me personally. And the purple was a little too short, like vertically. It didn't give a whole lot of support near the lower back if I wanted more support in my upper back. And so I think it is meant more for shorter or more petite people than me. I'm not overweight by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not petite either. So having this extra lip around the outside of the Samsonite, thus kind of distributing my weight in a nice little arch curve, as your back is wont to do, actually did a lot better job at providing full lumbar support than what the purple was doing, a little higher up on the back to be effective. When it was too low, I barely felt it against my back at all. It was there, but it wasn't really providing a lot of support, so I had to raise it. But in the end, I think I'm going to stick with the Samsonite just because of how much more full it is. It gives me a lot more support over the whole range of my lower lumbar. And it's just a way of revitalizing an office chair that, is dead, essentially. All the cushion is dead, but you still want to use it. You can see it's just worn out. But it's definitely a cheaper way to go than just buying a gaming chair. And like I said, I haven't found a gaming chair yet that fits me. And that's the problem with the gaming chairs, is they have different sizes because of how they're cupped and laid out. That if you're a larger size, you need to get the XLs. If you're a smaller, petite person, then the standard one that you might see go on sale quite a bit would be more for you. But me, I have to have somewhere in between so that those shoulders don't get rolled forward by the wings up top. I even threw in a little picture of my office chair at work. These are way more expensive. These are professional grade task chairs. Yeah, this would be a lot like the Herman Miller ones that Logitech actually signed up with to make their quote-unquote gaming chairs. And their chair ends up looking a lot like this one, where it has kind of that mesh back with the full support. They actually have a lot of little supports all over the back of the chair. But the problem is it's $1,500. Yeah, I was thinking that they'd come out with something a lot like this Ulrika chair, where it's got a mesh back, some support, maybe some LEDs or some striping and some color. hopefully not the racing bucket seat, because that's just kind of a marketing thing, but something that has a long life cushion for the seat, has the adjustable arms, those kinds of things. And I thought it would come out, $500-$600, because it would be a gaming chair marketed thing and be similar price to some of their chairs that are similar to this office chair that I use. And no, $1,500. I'm pretty sure it's a great sit. I'm sure it feels really great, but you might as well just get this Rika chair, because it's only like $600 to $800 depending on where you buy it from.
Kirk, would you rather have a G14 or that $1,500 chair?
The G14 I could use from a Lazy Boy, so probably the G14, because the Lazy Boy would probably be a little more comfortable.
the Lazy Boy more comfortable than the G14?
No, than the chair.
Ah.
I'm sure it would be more comfortable than the racing chairs. Although I still probably would get a Samsonite and stick it in the Lazy Boy, because they tend not to have very good back support. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. That's kind of the how and why I covered this and had it as a topic. I don't see very many actual deep reviews about the lumbar supports. I've seen, the listicle kind of thing where it's like, oh, the top 10 lumbar support. Yeah, those aren't very useful in my opinion.
So basically, you would recommend using a lumbar support pillow?
I would 100% recommend using a lumbar support cushion if your chair doesn't have a good lumbar support as is. And a lot of times they won't, unless if they're brand new. And the chair I used for these skeleton shots, this is a different chair. It's actually a newer, better conditioned chair. It does have a little bit of arch for the lumbar support. Yeah, probably a little worse than what the purple does, but it's still there when you sink into it. So it's better than, let's say, a kitchen chair, which some of you may actually be using. This would help a kitchen chair. If you didn't want to spend the money for the top-end chairs or any $100 office chair, this would definitely help. There's nothing more important than having good ergonomic hygiene in your chair.
Before we move on to questions, I need to make a public service announcement about SSDs.
Okay.
Don't put very high performance SSDs in laptops if you want to have good battery life.
Oh yeah.
Learn that the hard way.
I'm not sure if I want to put well, obviously not a Gen 4 or something like that, but
well, you can't because,
yeah.
Well, I mean, it'll go down to Gen 3 speed because no laptops have PCIe 4.0.
Yeah, definitely look into the amount of power draw in active and idle, especially idle.
Yeah. Go to AnandTech and figure that out.
They have some good idle power
They
measurements.
haven't reviewed SSDs recently, I don't think, but they have everything from 2018 and prior. So don't be like me and buy a 970 Evo Plus for your G14 and replace it with the shitty but power efficient Intel 660p in there, and then be like, oh, I'll put the 660p in my desktop because I was using a lower capacity SSD. That'll be an upgrade.
Just don't use the Intel 660p.
No, use it if it comes with it.
In a laptop, maybe, but I still wouldn't trust my data on it.
But now I'm I've swapped the SSDs again. So this is the second time this month I've reinstalled operating systems and all the software and drivers and stuff.
Yeah.
But is battery life so important for you? Yes. So aren't you? So you mean that you're taking the laptop a lot with you on the road?
No, but I will eventually.
I use my laptop in meetings and all sorts of things not plugged in, and so it would be very important.
For this semester, I am going to be going to campus only 2 or 3 times a week. All my other classes are online, but battery life, because also it was very inconsistent with this 970 Evo Plus. One of the things that it would do, it would just boost up to the like one of the higher power consumption power states for like no reason. Like it was just very inconsistent. So I just can't have that. Also, on video playback, it'll also boost to the high power state, and that took off like an hour of battery life, or more even. I didn't benchmark it, but it was at least an hour.
Just felt like it for sure.
I thought that maybe Samsung would have good idle and like be very efficient. I mean, technically it is efficient, but I'm never on my laptop. I'm not very often like doing a lot of high performance data stuff. So it's in the desktop now.
Yeah,
it's very fast, thankfully.
Well, the other benefit is the Intel SSD is actually one of the cheaper NVMe drives you can get. I still wouldn't trust my data on it though.
Why, Kirk? Why wouldn't you trust
I've
your
had
data
too
on it?
many of their SSDs fail on me at work.
Oh, like just fail? Oh, wow.
Yeah, outright just die. Not do their silent death thing where they just no longer are writable or anything, and so you can still... No, it's just they stop responding. You plug it into a computer, the computer locks up until you unplug it. You know,
maybe their write endurance is like really low.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is if their write endurance was low, then it would just go to read-only state and it'd still work. You just couldn't write to it.
That's actually not true. I have seen someone, I can't remember which one was it. It might have been Tech Report. They did like a death march with a bunch of different SSDs. And that was a few years ago. That was like 2015, 2017. But some of them would not read, some of them would not boot.
Yeah,
some of them would.
These would
that is true.
Send garbage data to the BIOS during a boot sequence. Like if you go look at the thing, it would lock up. Or if you boot it with Linux, which is more tolerant, it might be able to make it into the OS. But as soon as you run a smart CTL on it and try to pull up data, one of the SSDs claimed it was a 40 terabyte SSD and then crashed and would not respond thereafter, and it didn't even provide a full set of data back to Smart. So you tell me how foobarred the thing was. I mean,
well, this time I wouldn't blame Intel alone.
Yeah, I don't think whoever made their controller, but
Silicon
it's definitely a controller issue. But this is for their 2.5 inch SSDs as well, so it may be better in their NVMEs, but I think they might be using a similar controller. So
how long before Intel only becomes an SSD company?
If these are their SSDs, I hope not. For their sake, I hope
they
not.
Initially a memory company.
Well, I mean,
they started like that.
Come on, they made switches at one point, so
the first thing Intel made, I think it might have been memory. It might have been RAM.
I thought that they started like that, and then they went into
That's how AMD started. That's how AMD started too.
That's actually a funny story. This was like an interview. This was a fairly long time ago. An interview. If someone knows which interview this is, I have a hard time finding this when I think about it. Please comment which interview this is if you know. But it was like some like AMD, like not founders, but they were like there from like the very beginning. So when AMD first started, they couldn't find the right temperature for one of the steps in the RAM making process. So what do you think they did?
The right temperature?
Yeah, the right temperature. They didn't know the temperature for one of the processes.
Guess?
Trial and error?
No, they didn't guess. They did find the answer. They literally straight up just called one of Intel's fabs and they asked them, and they told them.
And they,
what? Oh, nice.
they just asked, and they were like, "Yeah, sure. It's like 500 something. Have a nice day." And then right after that, the interviewer was like, "Okay, so now you've admitted to." I don't know what the crime was, but it was just like, so now you've admitted to this crime, and that the interviewers were like, yeah, but it was a different time. It's a really funny moment in the interview.
But what crime could it be to ask a question? Unless they didn't.
It might have been like
not insider trading, but like IP theft. copyright issue, something like that.
Yeah, I can see where it'd be like a trade
But-
secret kind of thing where the
But it was like
temperature that they had was a trade secret, but
This is why someone needs to find that interview. That moment is just funny where the interviewer
it's
says
like you
that.
just admitted to a crime.
And they were like, yeah, but it was such a long time ago.
Statute
Surely
of
it doesn't-
limitations, come on.
Different time.
Guys, but I mean, if I call Coca-Cola and I ask them for a recipe,
Well, you,
and
well, you
some
have.
dumb
this
guy
was
just tells you,
This was in the 70s.
Oh yeah, well, true.
I mean,
I see where
just
you're
asked.
going.
yeah, so
The temperature you set a particular part of the process at is considered part of the recipe, and thus would be. Yeah, I see where you're going.
But this was like in the 70s where like Intel and AMD were new. So,
it's funny.
and then like it's just crazy to see like the kind of rivals they developed into.
Well, you got to think
After
a lot
that.
of the early Silicon era
Yeah.
was a bunch of friends. They all knew each
Yeah.
other from school
Yeah.
or who knows what.
Or like
Or they had a tight collaboration. They all went to the same cons.
a lot of them came from Fairchild Semiconductor.
Yeah, they all came from the same company. And so they called up their buddy at their other fab of a competitor, and it's like, oh, hey, we're kind of stuck on this.
I don't know if that's quite how that happens. In the interview, they were just like, we called, I think it was like Fab 3 at Intel, and they just asked them. They didn't say it was like a friend. They just
Yeah.
said they asked, and they got an answer.
Well, there you go.
Do we want to do questions now?
Yeah, let's go ahead and throw out that question.
Got one question from Tasty Milk. What impact will the PS5 and Xbox Series X have on games? What will the games of the future look like? That's a good question.
Let's go the deep dive nerve machine from Sword Art Online. Let's just go with that.
Wait, what?
Oh, you're not an anime fan?
I mean, I've seen Sword Art Online, yeah, but what the hell are you talking about?
The nerve unit from Sword Art is the headset that they put
Oh
on
yeah,
for
the
the
headset.
deep dive.
That's right.
I
I
mean,
didn't remember what the
if
hell that
you
thing was
if you're
called.
keeping up on Sword Art, we can go with the whole FTL stuff.
Isn't it Sword Art Online a bad anime?
A lot of people like to claim it's a bad anime. I like just watching stuff in general.
I only watched the first season.
Yeah, and I actually really liked the first season. It's the second, third, fourth that it kind of started going downhill, kind of. I can still get into the whole Gungel Online sequence. That was pretty cool. I really liked the end of season 2 because of the emotional tearjerker part of the storyline and things like that. You can really get invested into that. But
Oh, I might have seen season 2. Was season 2 like
with the
like,
Elfin Online, or
yeah,
whatever?
yeah. I saw that
yeah.
one. I kind of consider that. I thought that was also season 1.
No, it's a very clear season 2 that they defined it as.
Oh, okay. Because I kind of consider it like to be like the same story.
Yeah, and they've even kind of split the season 4 into 2 seasons, so to speak. But each season has 24 episodes, so yeah.
God damn! I watched 48 episodes of that. What the hell is wrong with me?
I know, right? But no, I was watching season 1 and just laughing almost the whole time through it because the game itself, it feels cool. It looks like it would be fun to be in and do, but it really doesn't make a lot of sense from a game point of view. And so there's a lot of critical...
they don't even hang on. They don't even get to the top to the game. They don't even get to the end of the game. It just ends. It's like, what the hell, man?
Well, no, they do get to the end of the game.
No, I'm talking about in season 1. They never get to the end.
Yeah, well, they do because they get shortcutted there because the...
Did they?
Yeah, I hate to give away a lot, but it's an old enough anime. It's been around for...
Yeah.
The guy who trapped everyone in the game was running one of the guilds, and so he got challenged and all of that. But they were on like floor 76 or 80 something out of 100.
I thought that's where it ended. I just did not remember them getting to floor 100.
Yeah, because they didn't. They kind of shortcutted their way there, but they did have an epic fight at the top of the tower. But I think that was...
I just don't remember that.
Yeah, and then, of course, there's the Elfin one where he gets to fight him again at the top of that tower, too.
No, that's a different guy, isn't it?
No, same guy.
How is it the same guy? I thought the guy he fought was...
Oh, wait, no, you're right. It was his lackey. It was his lackey. But
I don't even think it was
because
his
the
lackey.
first guy
It
becomes
was some,
this
it,
incognito.
No, it was just some random asshole, wasn't it?
No, it was his lab assistant or something like that.
Oh, okay.
He actually took.
I can't remember, but he was an asshole.
But yeah, the first guy becomes part of the Ghost in the Machine kind of idea, and so he becomes part one with the system. It's kind of weird. Yeah, I would say it's worth a watch, but I watched the first season laughing at a lot of the in jokes of MMOs. There was a whole bunch of really funny stuff in there, to me at least, especially of the people that had played through beta and had kind of that insider information and things like that. And then the general sense of some of the people that are more casual players kind of resenting the raiders and things like that. Those people that are just elitists and things like that. Elitist jerks is a pretty, that's actually a guild in World of Warcraft.
I like the concept. I think the execution isn't that good, but it's decent.
I think they made a few sacrifices to tell the story, right? I wish they had spent a lot more time, maybe 2-3 seasons worth, going through the original game rather than just kind of jumping around so much that by season or episode 5 or 6 the guy's like already a god in the game, right? And so I wish they had spent more with the character development, exploring the world and more of what they could have done. And the idea of this one guy running around soloing bosses, it was still a little bit OP in my opinion. I mean, yeah, sure, make your guy strong, but I did like the fact that they've had him team up and have to fight the boss in a raid group. And yeah, he solo single-handedly like OP killed the first raid boss kind of thing, but it was a struggle. It was interesting to watch. It was good, even though he did kind of come in from the end and take out the whole life bar. But so
back to the question. Let's get back down to earth. No, it won't be that kind of stuff. It's going to be ray tracing, and it'll look pretty, and that's basically it.
That's the short term, yeah.
It's going to look prettier than ever. There's going to be good lighting. It's going to look true to life. I think the problem is that we've kind of run into a wall with graphics. Like not that the hardware has run into a wall, but like what we can make them do in respect to like media stuff. Like it already looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you've played through a lot of these really good games, and you got these awesome skybox pictures that you can go and look at. And they just look really nice. They're not realistic or anything like that. They're not trying to be. They're trying to go for that awe and inspiring look.
Like, I still think Half-Life 2 looks really good.
I don't know.
You really?
Alex, maybe. Alex looks pretty good. But
well, yeah.
Half-Life, no. Aurelian, you wanted to chime in? Go for it.
Yeah, I was. Well, first of all, I don't know how far in the future are we going when we think about the games of the future. I guess we are thinking only about the next few years, right?
How about our livable future? How about that? That's the limit.
Well, they're talking about PS5 and Xbox Series X.
I don't think that's going to
be for the lifetime of those ones.
The consoles, let's do that.
Yeah, I see it like this. I'm not sure if these consoles, the way they are spec'd, are going to be able to make a decent gaming experience when it comes to full ray tracing. But I was very impressed. I guess we were all impressed by the Unreal 5 demo, which had this illumination so
it's just a tech demo though. It never ends up looking that good, except for maybe at the very tail end of the games for that.
Oh, I give you. Well, I accept that. But if you are able to, for example, only ray trace, for example, reflections, and leave the global illumination for these kind of tricks that they have used and all that, which is pretty good, I would say, that they have used there, those cave.
I still love the disappearing rocks in the landslide though, because that shows the weakness that we have still with our engines and stuff, where they can't have debris that just actually remains. It's more of a gimmick than anything.
Isn't that mostly related to the amount of memory you can use, because you need to keep track of every object there, or is that really GPU driven? I would say that's an optimization on the memory side though.
Yeah, but they don't go above and beyond, like try to merge those rocks in with the background on the fly, because all of the wall and stuff is a predefined mesh, and they don't have an easy way to just embed that new debris into that mesh on the fly.
Right.
Because that takes a lot of recomputing, and a lot of those mesh walls and stuff are actually pre-computed. And so
but maybe what we might see in the future when it comes to gaming is that so far, at least, all the benchmarks we have done and other tech channels have done have shown that there is a definite gain you see all the way to 4 cores. Then there is a minor gain that you can still gain to 6 core when you game. And then there is almost like no benefit from going above strictly for gaming. So whatever you go for 8 cores, 12 cores, 16 cores, whatever, it's more or less within, definitely you would not notice big differences there. And that's because how the game engines have been designed in the past, because they're due to how many cores were available and how the cache is organized, so that you get the penalties when you use too many threads and all that. But as the hardware has improved lately, on both sides, we are talking Intel and AMD also. I mean, I'm talking for the past 3 years, let's say so.
Mm-hmm.
It might be that we might see game engines slowly kind of saying, okay, now maybe it's time that maybe there's some optimizations that can be gained, and maybe some refactoring in the engine, or adding features, or restructuring everything to take advantage of those extra compute powers. So we might be able to, in the future games, be seeing, or let's say seeing more scaling when it comes to increasing the cores past these 4 to 6, which seems to be currently the kind of, let's say 6 is the top and 4 is like the sweet spot there. We might move up a bit. So you might see some games that will kind of take advantage of that, game engines mostly.
Yeah, and with game engines and stuff, there's one primary driver of using more cores for them, basically. It's cost. If they can refactor the code, which is expensive, by the way, it provides zero benefit except for allowing maybe to add more feature because of having more ability to add CPU compute stuff. Refactoring code just for the sake of refactoring is a futile effort. Not very many companies go do that unless if there is a pressing reason. And most of the time that pressing reason is going to be expansion. Like they want to add extra capability to their code.
Yeah. But then they will have
they're not going to go back and just refactor code. They're going to go and just rewrite the part that they need to rewrite and refactor what that touches, kind of thing.
This is totally irrelevant, but on the topic of refactoring, Paradox's Victoria 2 game, the code is so refactored, even the developers don't even know what it does.
Okay.
I guess I
just want to say that.
But yeah, a lot of times it might be easier for them to do a ground up rewrite than to refactor existing code because of how much legacy is carried forward in existing code. It would be easier just to rewrite from scratch. And but a lot of times, like you said, there's going to be a lag in hardware capability versus what the engine can do. And so today, there are engines that use 8 cores because we've had 8 cores, or at least 8 threads, for a long time. And it's taken that long for those games to adopt those 8 threads of utilization. And now we got 8 cores with 16 threads. That leaves a lot of OS threads available to do things while the game is running. And so now we have a lot of things like the ability to stream while playing your games and things like that. That's what AMD was pushing with their CPUs versus the Intel ones, is look, you can play this game and stream at the same time. Whereas with the Intel, you get lag or jumpiness or jittery or whatever. It's not a clean stream. And
so it might be that the fact that the consoles have it, because consoles do have a lot of saying in that, because PC market is very, very heterogeneous. You have all shapes and sizes, but the consoles are fixed. So
so they're going to definitely take
they are a
advantage
big
of
driver.
at least 14 or so of those threads that they have available to them, because
Yep.
a little
Yep.
bit has to remain for the OS threads.
So I would be curious, like in a few years' time, when we would be comparing again this game and that game, or this engine and that engine in the future, we might be able to see we might be able to see them scaling upwards from 4 to 6 cores, like from 8 to 12 threads a bit. So it might push a bit higher than that.
Yeah, and I really hope that everyone that was recommending 4-core no extra thread i5s back in the day has learned their lesson. Because those
I do hope
just
so as well.
are so underpowered right now. Even just a few years later, and they were a bad recommendation. Now, if you had upgraded since then yeah, they're not a bad recommendation. They were cheap enough that it could afford you to get a better CPU in a shorter period of time. But for those that just buy it and then leave it and expect to game for 6-8 years on it, which is how a lot of people probably end up going, because it's expensive to replace your CPU, motherboard, and RAM, depending on how much of a gen jump you're doing. It might have been better just to have bought that higher end CPU to begin with and stayed on that platform for as long as you ended up staying on that platform.
But do you guys see that on the graphics side there would be a big jump? Because I know these new GPUs will be like at least twice faster, but
I don't think
is that enough?
Graphics will take a big jump.
I agree. I tend to agree.
Because you can only make that whole pipeline parallel to an extent.
So much, yeah.
You need to get the faster pumping through that pipeline.
Yeah,
but we're also focusing more on like 144 hertz and 4K and some of these other things that you're not going to see like a huge leap in graphic fidelity and things like that. Because everything has to be pipelined. You have to run certain things before certain other things before other things. That's kind of where ray tracing is a really big boon, is because you can run ray tracing concurrently. But all of that's done on the GPU, not the CPU. So extra cores on the CPU isn't a thing. It's more widening the amount of processing that the GPU can do, which is why I brought up that 120 core or the CU thing earlier. Is it gives more CUs that broader range to be able to run all of these ray tracing threads concurrently and construct that image. And I just see that getting wider and wider as a way to help speed up things when we actually make that transition to ray traced instead of rasterization.
But I still I see these generations of the new generation of the consoles to be the entry level console generations for ray tracing cases. Not at all enough to properly run ray tracing on them. Just maybe like
it's going to be equivalent to what we see right now with RTXs.
Right, exactly.
I mean, we're not going to see everything rendered like Minecraft where it's all ray traced. We're going to see selective ray tracing like we see with Battlefield 5 and things like that.
Yeah.
And they'll find better ways to, say, cheat the system, or maybe like with next gen NVIDIA, get 4x ray tracing performance, supposedly rumored. So that they can do more with their ray tracing, and eventually it'll evolve to where maybe they'll have to have a mid-cycle upgrade for the consoles where they now have this magic 16x ray tracing capability because they're on RDNA 4 or something. But yeah, I think CPU, like you're saying, the 16 threads available to these machines will enable a lot more than graphics in this next go, because everyone has been limited by 4-core 8-thread kind of stuff as the top end desktop for a long time. But now we have 16 threads, 32 threads on just normal desktop PCs. We're going to see a lot more in the terms of AI and active objects in our game, a lot of things that it can do in the background while we're playing. So I see a lot more simulation kind of stuff going on in the background, where you have dozens or even hundreds of NPCs in RPGs as opposed to tens. Things like that. Yeah, I see that being more driven than graphic fidelity in the next
I agree.
6 years.
Yep.
So I hope that answers the question. I'm sure we flogged the dead horse quite a bit on that. And
Much.
we're definitely running our 30-minute time frame as usual. So
You'll have
Yeah,
to cut
yeah,
again this
yeah.
video a lot.
so I hope everyone's enjoyed listening.
I appreciate the respect you give me, Kirk.
Oh, I try. We keep this podcast down to 30 minutes all the time just for you, Matthew.
I don't even say that anymore.
You just gave up. You just joined the Borg.
Yes. I hope everyone enjoys these long format podcasts. If you don't, leave us a comment. If you do, leave us a comment. We'll see who wins on those votes as well. Yeah, we can do these in a little bit more bite size if you guys like those, but maybe you like just playing it and listening while playing.
Or more
games.
live streams.
Oh, yeah. If you guys want to see some live streams, ask us some questions on the fly, make us embarrass ourselves. It's always great fun. So
I think we should try it. I'd like the idea.
Yeah, we've done a few in the past, like with the 1-year anniversary for the website. And we did do a podcast live at one point as well. So if you guys want to see more of that content, let us know. Yeah, leave us comments. Check out Jim's Patreon as well. Support from you guys is always appreciated. We got our merch as well. Yeah, we're going to have to update that for a few new memes that I'm sure we can think of. And go to the YouTube for the website as well as for Jim. Make sure to hit those likes and subscribes, and we will see you in the next one.